June 4, 1942. Dawn breaks cold and metallic over the central Pacific. Aboard the Japanese fleet carrier Akagi, Admiral Chuichi Nagamo stands on the bridge, binoculars pressed to his eyes. The flight deck hums. Zero fighters roar skyward in perfect formation, their rising sun insignias catching the first light. Below, deck crews wave flags with practiced arrogance. Nagumo allows himself a thin smile. Intelligence reports insist the American carriers are crippled, scattered, or sunk. "They will not interfere," he tells his staff. Laughter ripples through the wardroom. One captain raises a cup of sack. "To the Yankees, hiding in Pearl Harbor while we take Midway." 200 miles east, unseen, 3 U.S. carriers ghost through low cloud. Their decks are alive, too. Dauntless dive bombers warm engines. Pilots clutch photographs of wives, children, sweethearts. No one laughs. They know the odds. At 06 Ariwal, Japanese strike waves lift off. 108 aircraft bound for Midway's runways. Nagumo reserves a second wave on his hangars, torpedoes already mated to Kate bombers. He expects an easy morning. He does not see the American scout pilot who spots his fleet at 0520. Does not hear the encrypted radio burst racing to Admiral Raymond Spruance. Enemy carriers in sight. The sky is still pale when the first zeros climb. In minutes, it will burn. By December 1941, the Empire of Japan stood at the zenith of its military reach. Pearl Harbor lay smoldering. Hong Kong had fallen in 18 days. Wake Island surrendered on Christmas Eve. Manila was abandoned by January 2nd. Singapore, Britain's impregnable fortress, crumpled on February 15, 1942, with 80,000 Allied troops marching into captivity. In Tokyo, newspapers screamed, "Victory d'Aziz!" Officers toasted with sake in the Imperial Hotel, convinced the Pacific belonged to the rising sun. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, warned otherwise. He knew America's industrial heart still beat. Yet even he pressed forward with Operation MI, the seizure of Midway Atoll. 300 miles northwest of Hawaii, Midway was a speck. 2 sand islands inside a circular reef, home to 2,000 Marines and a single airstrip. To Japan, it was a dagger aimed at Hawaii. Capture it, and the U.S. Pacific Fleet would sail out to die. Yamamoto committed everything. 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, carrying 248 aircraft. Behind them, steamed battleships Yamato and Musashi, 11 destroyers, 2 light carriers, oilers, troop transports. Total, 190 ships, the largest armada in Japanese history. On May 5th, the Battle of the Coral Sea bloodied both sides. Japanese carriers, Shokaku and Zuikaku, limped home damaged. Zuikaku's air groups were shredded. Yamamoto dismissed the losses. "The Americans run," radio intercepts boasted. Nagumo's staff believed Yorktown, torpedoed and listing, would need months in dry dock. They were wrong. In Pearl Harbor's chaos, welders worked around the clock. Yorktown entered dry dock May 27th. By June 1st, she steamed out patched, scarred, but lethal. Admiral Chester Nimitz now commanded 3 carriers: Enterprise, Hornet, Yorktown, Task Forces 16 and 17, under Raymond Spruance and Frank Jack Fletcher. American codebreakers in Hypo Station, Pearl Harbor, had cracked JN-25. Lieutenant Commander Joseph Rochefort's team translated fragments. AF was Midway. Invasion date, June 4th. Nimitz stripped defenses elsewhere, rushed PBY Catalinas for scouting, laid submarine pickets. 2 fleets sailed toward collision. One believed destiny favored the brave. The other trusted mathematics, steel, and revenge. The Japanese armada steamed northwest at 20 knots, shrouded in radio silence. Nagumo's 4 carriers formed a tight box. Akagi and Kaga in the lead, Soryu and Hiryu astern. Each flight deck carried 72 aircraft, Zeros, Vals, Kates, pilots who had trained for years, flown over China, believed in Bushido. Yamamoto watched from the super battleship Yamato, 500 miles behind. He had gambled everything on one throw. If Midway fell, Hawaii would be next. If the American carriers appeared, the war could turn in an afternoon. Across the horizon, Nimitz's scouts flew 700-mile arcs in lumbering PBYs. At 05:20 on June 4th, Ensign Jack Reed banked his Catalina through cloud. Below, white wakes, 4 flat tops, battleships in column. He tapped the key. Main body, bearing 325, distance 180. In Pearl Harbor's basement, Rochefort's team cheered. Every intercept matched. Nimitz had positioned Spruance northeast of Midway, exactly where the Japanese did not expect. Enterprise and Hornet launched at 07 Boisers, 1116 aircraft. Dauntless dive bombers, Devastator torpedoes, Wildcat escorts. Yorktown followed with 72 more. Pilots wore cotton khaki, no parachutes for the torpedo crews, too bulky. Lieutenant Commander John Waldron, leading Torpedo 8, told his men, "If only one of us survives, sink a carrier." Japanese lookouts spotted the first American planes at 07:05. Zeros scrambled. Nagumo faced a cruel choice: launch his reserve strike against Midway or rearm for ships. Torpedoes for land bombs? He hesitated. At 09:20, Tomonaga's strike returned from Midway. Fuel low. Planes shot up. "Need second strike," he radioed. Nagumo ordered the switch. Torpedoes back on. Decks swarmed with ordnance, unseen. American bombers closed. The sky filled with flak. The battle had begun. The first American wave struck at 09:20. 15 lumbering Devastator torpedo planes from Hornet, Torpedo 8, skimmed the waves at 100 feet. No fighter cover. Zeros pounced. One by one, tracers stitched the sky. Ensign George Gay watched his squadron vanish in fireballs. He released his torpedo, belly-flopped into the sea, clung to a seat cushion. He alone survived. 10 minutes later, Torpedo 3 from Yorktown bored in. Same fate. Japanese Combat Air Patrol, 30 Zeros, carved them apart. Only 4 Devastators limped away. Torpedo 6 from Enterprise followed. 6 shot down, yet the sacrifices bought time. Nagumo's fighters flew low. Fuel and ammunition spent chasing torpedo planes. His carriers turned into the wind, decks cluttered with bombs, fuel hoses, armed cates. On Akagi's bridge, Lieutenant Commander Minoru Genda, planner of Pearl Harbor, coughed blood from tuberculosis. Still, he urged speed. Below, 19-year-old deckhand Takeshi Maeda stacked 250-kilo bombs by hand. No time for safety. Aboard Enterprise, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey led 33 Dauntless dive bombers. Fuel gauges blinked red. He circled, searching. At 10:20, he spotted a lone destroyer, Arashi, racing to rejoin. Followed the wake, Nagumo's dilemma crystallized at 10:22. Launch now with half-armed planes? Or wait? He chose wait. Fatal, American dive bombers peeled off at 19,000 feet. Sun behind them. Zeros 15,000 feet below. No opposition. At 10:22, Lieutenant Commander Clarence Wade McCluskey pushed his Dauntless over the Japanese fleet. The SBD carried a single 500 lb bomb under the belly, 2 100 lb wing bombs. No torpedoes, no illusions. Japanese anti-aircraft guns opened up. Type 96, 25mm, frantic. Shells burst black against blue. Zeros, low on fuel, climbed desperately. Too late. The Dauntless rolled into 70-degree dives. Speed built to 300 knots. Wind screamed. Pilots pulled the release at 1,500 feet, yanked out of the plunge. Bombs whistled down. Nagumo stood frozen on Akagi's bridge. Smoke poured from Kaga. Hit first. 4 bombs. Fuel hoses ruptured. Secondary explosions rippled. Captain Taijiro Aoki ordered counter-flooding. Useless. Flames reached the torpedo magazine. On Enterprise, Spruance listened to radio chatter. "Scratch 1 flat top," Lieutenant Richard Best reported, after planting his bomb on Akagi's deck, center of the rising sun. Nagumo transferred his flag twice, first to cruiser Nagara, then destroyer Nowaki. Each time, another carrier burned. Yamamoto, aboard Yamato, received the news at 10:50. All 4 carriers lost. He stared at the chart. The invasion force, 15 transports, 5,000 troops, turned south. Midway untouched. In 4 minutes, the Imperial Navy lost the war's momentum. American losses: 40 aircraft, 150 men. Japanese: 248. Planes: 4 carriers, 3,057 dead. The sky had turned to fire, and the rising sun dimmed. Celsius 2 a.m. The Pacific sky splits open. Lieutenant Commander Siu Wade McCluskey's 33 Dauntless dive bombers roll inverted and plummet toward Kaga. Bombs whistle. The first 500-pounder punches through the flight deck amid parked Kates. Fuel vapor ignites. A yellow-white flash engulfs the hangar. Secondary blasts hurl aircraft overboard like toys. 2 miles south, Lieutenant Commander Maxwell Leslie's 17 Dauntless from Yorktown target Akagi. Leslie's bomb release handle jams. He dives anyway. 3 bombs strike home. 1 lands dead center on the elevator. Admiral Nagumo staggers as the deck heaves. Flames race along fuel lines. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Richard Best peels off alone. He ignores Kaga, already doomed, and aims for Akagi's bridge. His bomb detonates feet from the island. Black smoke boils 1,000 feet high. On Soryu, Captain Yanagimoto Ryusaku watches the inferno. Then the sky darkens again. Lieutenant Earl Gallagher's 15 Enterprise Dauntless scream down. 4 direct hits. Torpedo magazines cook off. A chain of explosions rips the carrier in half. In 6 minutes, 3 fleet carriers burn uncontrollably. Deck crews fight with buckets. Damage control parties vanish in steam. Pilots still in cockpits roast alive. Zeros circle uselessly. Fuel gone. Ammunition spent. Anti-aircraft guns fall silent. Gunners incinerated at their posts. Nagumo stands on Akagi's bridge, face blistered. "Abandon ship," he orders. Crews slide down ropes into oil-slicked water. At 10:26, the 4th carrier, Hiryu, remains untouched, 10 miles north. Her strike leader, Lieutenant Joichi Tominaga, nurses a shot-up plane back from Midway. 1 fuel tank empty. He waves off landing. Instead, he leads 36 aircraft south, escorted by 6 Zeros, toward revenge. 40 a.m. Hiryu launches Hell. Lieutenant Joichi Tominaga climbs into his battered Kate, 1 fuel tank dry, the other leaking. He salutes the deck crew, pushes the throttle, and lifts off with 18 bombers and 6 Zeros. Destination: the American carriers. At 10:54, radar on Yorktown screams contact. Bearing 265, distance 110 miles. Spruance turns Task Force 16 into the wind. Wildcats scramble. Tominaga's Vals dive through cloud at 12,000 feet. Yorktown's 5-inch guns bloom orange. Shells burst in black puffs. 3 Vals spiral down trailing fire. 2 bombs strike home. 1 punches through Yorktown's flight deck, explodes in the uptake, snuffs furnaces. Smoke pours from stacks. A second detonates below, igniting Avgas. Fires rage 4 decks deep. Captain Elliot Buckmaster orders counter-flooding. Yorktown lists 26 degrees, then rights herself. Flight deck patched with steel plates and prayers. Tominaga never returns. Zeros shoot him down over the task force. His Kate crashes in flames. 12:05 p.m. Hiryu launches the second wave. 10 Kates, 6 Zeros. They find Yorktown again at 14 O's. Torpedoes ripple into the water. 2 slam port side. Yorktown shudders, rolls. Engines die. Abandon ship, Buckmaster orders. Men slide into rafts. Destroyers pull 2,270 sailors from oil-slicked waves. Spruance smells blood. Yorktown's scouts track Hiryu's wake. At 15 words, 24 Dauntless, orphans from 3 carriers, lift off Enterprise. Safatruchan, the sky turns to fire one last time. Lieutenant Earl Gallagher rolls in. 4 bombs. Hiryu's deck erupts. Captain Tomei Okaku dies on the bridge. Flames swallow the island. By 19, Hiryu drifts dead. Crew sing Umi Yukaba as destroyers torpedo the corpse. Yamamoto receives the final signal at dawn 2:55, June 5th, aboard Yamato. All carriers lost. Recommend general retreat. He stares at the chart, then orders the armada south. The invasion convoy, 15 transports, 5,000 troops, turns tail. Midway's Marines cheer from sandbag bunkers. The sky cools. 4 Japanese carriers lie 2,000 fathoms down. The rising sun sets on the Pacific offensive. June 5, 1942. Dawn reveals a graveyard of steel. Akagi rolls gutted, her bow underwater. Crew cling to rafts. Destroyers Nawaki and Kazagamo close in. Torpedoes thud home. The flagship slides beneath the waves at 05:15, taking 221 men with her. Kaga follows at 19:25. Captain Jisaku Okada stays aboard, sword in hand. 801 souls vanish into the abyss. Soryu sinks at 19:13, her hull torn open like tin. 711 dead. Hiryu lingers longest. Fires rage unchecked. At 09 Sarat, June 5th, 2 torpedoes from Makigumo end her agony. Captain Kaku's body never recovered. Total Japanese toll: 3,057 sailors and airmen. 248 aircraft, 4 fleet carriers, irreplaceable. The cream of naval aviation. Pilots who trained 6 years, now fish food. American losses sting, but do not cripple. Yorktown fights on, listing, until Japanese submarine I-168 finds her at dawn, June 6th. 3 torpedoes. One spreads to destroyer Haman, fused to her side. Both ships sink by 06 Schwarzwald, June 7th. 307 Americans lost. Midway's Marines count craters, not casualties. The atoll stands. Invasion transports, 15 of them, steam south. Troops seasick and defeated. Yamamoto stares at empty ocean from Yamato's bridge. "We have lost the gamble," he mutters. Radio silence falls. The armada scatters. Battleships to truck. Cruisers to hash out blame. In Washington, Nimitz reads the intercepts. "The Japanese Navy is finished offensively," he cables Roosevelt. Shipyards in Newport News lay keels for Essex-class carriers, 24 of them. Welders in Pearl Harbor patch Saratoga. The tide turns on blueprints and steel. Nimitz cables Washington. Midway a complete success. Roosevelt reads it aloud to the cabinet. Shipyards hum. By July, Enterprise and Hornet steam for Guadalcanal. Saratoga joins from overhaul. Japan reels. Yamamoto confines himself to quarters aboard Yamato. Admirals argue in Truck Lagoon. Victory disease becomes a curse word. Carrier construction shifts to Taiho and Unryu. Too few, too late. Pilot training slashes from 900 hours to 300. Replacements fly with 50 hours total. The Solomons bleed next. Guadalcanal devours Japanese air groups. By November, Zuikaku and Junyo limp into Iron Bottom Sound. Trading blows with American flat tops. Each battle costs irreplaceable veterans. In Tokyo, newspapers print vague, strategic withdrawals. Civilians queue for rice. Steel earmarked for battleships now feeds submarine hulls. American code breakers keep reading JN-25. Submarines prowl Japanese supply lanes. Tankers burn. Islands wither. Midway's numbers tell the story. Japan, 4 carriers. 1 cruiser, 3,057 dead. 248 aircraft. United States. 1 carrier. 1 destroyer, 307 dead, 150 aircraft. The Pacific map flips. Red arrows halt. Blue arrows push south. From Midway's sand, a new war emerges. One of attrition, islands, and firebombers. The rising sun begins its long descent. June 4th, 1942, fades into history, yet its echoes shape the world. 4 Japanese carriers rest on the Pacific floor. Monuments to hubris. Akagi's twisted steel cradles the ghosts of 221 aviators. Kaga's hangar, once alive with engines, now shelters silence at 18,000 feet. Midway teaches a brutal truth. Intelligence defeats steel. Codebreakers in a Pearl Harbor basement outfought admirals on golden bridges. Nimitz's gamble, 3 carriers against 4, proves preparation trumps numbers. The battle claims 3,364 lives in 3 days. Sailors burn in Avgas infernos. Pilots drown clutching photographs. Ensign George Gay floats amid wreckage, watching Hiryu's final dive bombers streak overhead. He survives to tell the tale. From Midway springs the American offensive. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, each island a stepping stone paid in blood. Japan's empire contracts like a dying star. Yamamoto's warning proves prophetic. I can run wild for 6 months. After that, I have no expectation of success. Midway marks the 6th month. The sky that turned to fire illuminates a new era. Carriers rule the seas. Submarines starve islands. Bombers darken Tokyo. In the end, Midway is not just a battle. It is the moment the Pacific War tilts, irreversibly, toward dawn. The rising sun yields to a new light, forged in American shipyards and tempered by resolve. Humanity learns again. Underestimation ignites catastrophe. And from the ashes of overconfidence rises the unyielding will to endure. The ocean keeps its secrets, but the lesson endures.